The preseason is underway, and the Tennessee Titans fall tonight 23-10 to the Baltimore Ravens. 2022 officially begins. Malik Willis gets his first start. Logan Woodside has a couple of interceptions. Racey McMath, the play of the day. And Titans Talkback 2022 edition is off and running. The phone number is 615-737-1045. There's a lot to react to from Titans football getting underway in the competitive sense in 2022. And joining me, Will Boling, for all of our coverage here on Titans Talkback this season, the one and only Dr. Kevin Dyson.
Yeah, man.
Back in the building. What's going on, my man?
Hey, not much, man. Happy to have you, man. Look forward to this season to see how this thing goes. We had a interesting start today. Some bright spots, but definitely something to grow on.
Lots to grow on, and looking forward to work with you this season after Titans radio coverage right here on 104.5 The Zone each and every week. The phone number, once again, 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in. Give us your headline from this loss. 23-10, the Baltimore Ravens get the win over the Tennessee Titans. And we'll start with you, Kevin Dyson. What is the biggest thing that you take away from this performance here tonight?
Well, let's start with the positives. The rookie got a start, and he didn't look shaky. He looked confident, comfortable, especially as his series kind of kept going. He protected the football. He had some throws that, it's going to happen for him, but he made a big play. He ran for a big play, and I say ran for a big play. He got a touchdown out of it. Had a big completion. Defensively, solid. I say the first group. That's not really the first group, but they did what they needed to do other than the turnovers kind of killed them. Turnovers was a key tonight. That's going to be something that sits in Vrabel's side for this year, for this game, I should say, where he's big on protecting that football, right? 3 turnovers is going to kill you. But on and behold, man, it's a lot to grow on. It wasn't gratifying in the least, but it wasn't one of those games left you thinking that the Titans are going to be terrible this year. You saw some positive things, saw some stuff they can grow on. And one thing about preseason that's different than when we played, this is auditions, whereas when we were playing, it was preparation. We were getting ready for the season. It was kind of conditioning our bodies to get ready. This was auditions. You saw a lot of guys get a lot of opportunities to show some things, showcase. And it's hard not to sit there and dwell on the quarterback because that's the first position you think about. And he did some really good things tonight. And it's exciting to see what he's doing. And to the other part of that, Logan Woodside, he forced the throw. I don't blame him on that first pick.
Right.
I think his receiver took the inside route. He was anticipating keeping that same track, and then he dipped back outside. He threw it to the inside. That's kind of that communication piece. The receiver kind of left him out on that one. But that second one, he seemed to kind of force that throw, got the hand on it, got the tip ball. But lo and behold, he still got to protect the football. He had 2 picks compared to the rookie not protecting the football and getting a scoring drive. So on and behold, you got a B- C grade for today. But there's a lot to build on and a lot of positives to build on.
There were positives. There were learning experiences tonight for Malik Willis, who started 0 for his first 3 on the opening possession, finishes 6 for his last 8, a total of 6 for 11, 107 yards. He adds 5 carries for 38 yards. It seemed pretty quick, Kevin, that it was either first read or run. And the only time where you really saw that break down, the end of the first half, when he takes a sack in a moment that you just can't really take a sack with about 25 seconds left.
Yeah, that was one of those ones where that experience comes in. It's the NFL. Them guys don't miss those tackles too many times. College, you might be able to slip that one, but in the pros, more often than not, they're going to make that play. And so that's one of the ones you protect the ball, protect the possession, protect distance, protect yardage. Go ahead and throw that ball out of bounds, man, and live to see another day. But it's, again, I felt overall it was a good learning experience for him, good experience for him. There wasn't, like you said, instant like that. The beginning of the game, nerves may be in there a little bit. The ball was kind of spraying, if you will, from an accuracy standpoint. But all in that, I still didn't see anything to say this kid can't be successful at this level. he looked like he can have a very successful career. There's, in the group text, people will say flashes of Mac. It's hard not to.
That's right.
It's hard not to say it, man. And but he looked good, man. It's gonna be hard for Logan to keep him off of him for that number 2 spot for sure.
615-737-1045 is the phone number here on Titans Talkback, brought to you by Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Our first caller of the night, Gil, calling all the way from California. He wants to talk about Logan Woodside. What's going on, Gil?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? I would like to say with Logan Woodside, I'm thinking he's going to go to the practice squad. I don't see us having 3 quarterbacks going in. I think they'll throw him on the practice squad, and if somebody takes him, then we'll get somebody else off the streets. And another thing, I think the Racey McMath thing is real.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call, Gil. Good start to the evening. So let me ask you this, Kevin, because the Titans have had a lot of revolving third quarterbacks battle with Logan Woodside.
Yeah.
You've seen Deshaun Kaiser. You've seen Matt Barkley. You've seen a lot of names be that third guy. The Titans have always chosen to keep 2 and for Logan Woodside to be that number 2. Logan Woodside, to me, his best attribute is the Titans don't have to completely change the offense. If something bad happens, and God forbid, you got to have a backup quarterback go in for Ryan Tannehill. Does that mean that he has a spot on this team at the beginning of this season? Because you'd have to change the offense so much to give Malik Willis an opportunity. Where do you see Logan Woodside fitting in this equation right now?
I don't know if you'd have to change the offense that much for Malik. I think he's showing that he can progress within the scheme. He's been a more of a spread guy, but he's transformed, at least from first glimpse in game type speed. Now we know it's not regular season game speed, but just seemingly looking at it tonight, I don't know if you have to completely adjust everything you do. I think if nothing else, if you're talking about an adjustment, you're adding another element similar to what Baltimore did with Lamar Jackson. You add that element of now the quarterback is a legitimate running threat. But don't people sleep on the fact that Tannehill's a good athlete too now.
Yeah, he is.
He is. And so you can still do some of the same gaming and zone reading and things of that nature that we are all assuming that Malik can add to this offense. And Logan being more of the statuesque, more of a pocket passer, more so than maybe a young Malik. But I don't necessarily believe you have to completely change your scheme for Malik. I think he's showing that he can adjust, he's adaptable, and he's willing to grow and put in the work. And as long as he continues to have that trajectory, it's going to be hard for Logan to keep him away from that number 2 spot. That doesn't mean that Logan, like to your point, have the early nod from experience. I mean, if I'm a head coach and I know what I have in him. Right. I know if something happens with Tannehill, I know what I have in him. And that goes back to tonight. I feel like that's one of the reasons that you start a Malik tonight, to see what do I have. We've seen your practice. We've seen glimpses. We've seen you make plays. We've seen your mistakes. Now let's go against a Baltimore Ravens defense and see what you can do. And so we'll see this week when he's going against Tampa Bay all week. And then get into the preseason game. How is he prepared? How is he studying his practice film? How does he adjust from one practice to the next? Is he getting better from one practice to the next? Now that he's got a taste of game action in the National Football League. So this is a big week. Hopefully I understate that this week in scrimmaging another team. Although the coverages and things of that nature will be pretty vanilla, and it will be practice. You got one-on-one drills. You do some skelly, some 7-on-7 type stuff. But the speed does pick up a little bit because it's a little more competitive, and he gets a different look. You get a more aggressive, more man-to-man type scheme defense that the Tampa Bay runs. We'll see. He's able to read on the fly. How does he handle pressure? You brought up a point today when he was scrambling the one he probably should have thrown out of bounds and protect yardage. How does he adjust from that? Does take that learning lesson. Now you got a team that's as fast and not faster, and more of aggressive blitzing type style defense. So we'll see, but it's going to be hard for Logan to keep that man off the field. I don't necessarily know if they keep 3. It all depends. There's 6, 8 receivers that they got to decide what they're going to do. And he brought up one. McGrath had another big play today.
Yeah, he did.
So it's going to be hard.
Racey McMath, the first guy that Mike Vrabel mentioned in his post-game conversations with Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, here on Titans Radio, when he was asked what the big takeaway was from him. Racey McMath was the first guy that he mentioned. I think that guys like Racey McMath give Tennessee more of a luxury of keeping a third quarterback. Because Racey McMath is going to contribute as a tackler on special teams, possibly now as a returner, as a kick return option. And he flashed a little bit there tonight. And then Kyle Phillips is another guy. Didn't see him make a catch tonight, but again, a guy that's going to contribute as a possible kick punt returner. So if you're looking for reasoning of why the Tennessee Titans could keep a third quarterback, that's it right there. You got to have guys that can do multiple things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned a couple of guys that it's going to be hard to keep them off the field as well. And, and you still got to see what the number one pick can do as well. Because how's Jalen Burke, how's he fit into this equation as far as rotation and things of that nature. And we starting to see Robert Woods as well. So, it's a good problem to have when you have talent. You got to make some tough decisions. But I think overall, offensive line, running game didn't really get going. They got to tighten some things up there. And a lot of people are going to assume once you get the King back there, a lot of some of the stuff will be fixed. They weren't sustaining blocks. They weren't getting to the second level, and that's not going to help Derrick Henry. I don't care how good he is. You still have to have bodies on bodies to create running lanes for guys. He's going to break some of those tackles that those guys weren't, but you still got to have bodies on people. So, but they'll get that corrected. And again, that's part of that competition as we go into the second preseason. And again, you're going against other bodies. This is now you're getting to. We study film after each practice. But now you're really studying because you got a different opponent.
Right.
You can take some things for granted because you know that guy across from you, his practice style, his practice speed. Sometimes you can take advantage of that, if you will, and take it for granted. But now it's for keeps. You're competing every day, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be spirited. There'll be fights. There's going to be screaming. There's going to be jaw jacking. You're going to be talking mess. It's almost game like when you do these practices. And especially for the young guys. They're fighting for spots. And
that's right.
I used to tell young guys all the time, you're not just trying out for the Titans. You're trying out for all 32 teams, man. You're going to film. And now when we were going against the Colts or the Rams or whoever, you just know that GM and that head coach is watching you just like your GM and your head coach. So
stakes are raised a good bit right
absolutely. There. Especially if you like we're talking about you on this other end of this depth chart. You never know. They like you. They see you get released. They pick you up just because they got to practice with you for 3-4 days. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun week.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We begin tonight with our takeaways from Malik Willis, Logan Woodside, the two quarterbacks, Ryan Tannehill, among many starters who did not make the trip, did not play tonight for the Titans in a 23-10 loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Woodside, 14 of 24, 102 yards.
Yeah.
Malik Willis on half of the attempts and half of the completions with 107 yards. Willis, 9.7 yards per attempt. Woodside, 4.3. Malik Willis was sacked twice tonight. Logan Woodside was kept upright, but threw 2 interceptions. I thought the Titans coaching staff did a really good job, Kevin, in making Malik Willis confident. You had an early throw to Julius Chestnut on the third drive of the game. That was a gain of 12. And then later on that drive, Malik Willis finds Hassan Haskins for a gain of 18. I liked seeing Malik Willis go through those progressions because at that point, your running back in those situations between the 30s isn't your primary target with what they were doing. So that were really the only 2 times we saw him go through his progressions standing in the pocket. And that is a big step forward for him that he struggled with a little bit so far in training camp.
Yeah, he was seemingly getting more comfortable. I don't know. Again, jitters, your first NFL game is a start against the Baltimore Ravens on a Thursday night. It wasn't but one other game going on, so people were watching. But he got settled in. Maybe it was the scramble. Maybe it's something that just woke him up. And, you mentioned he had 2 sacks. He got sacked twice. One of those is on him.
Yeah.
And again, that's a learning experience, and they'll get in the film room and we'll talk about it. But again, that's that experience that comes with playing and being in the preseason. And as we talked about earlier, this is an audition. And I looked at, like you said, the yards per attempt. It looked like he was waiting for guys to develop. So maybe he was looking for that number 1 read, but he was looking to go vertical a little bit more so than just go ahead and dump it off and take what they give you, so to speak. But I was happy to see that, and that shows that he has some patience and some trust in some of the guys he was playing with. Maybe coverage dictated that. Logan, at times, he looked necessarily uncertain, and I say that with a grain of salt because maybe his confidence was shaking a little bit with some of the guys he was playing with. Like I mentioned before, that first pick, the guy dipped inside, started going vertical, then dipped back outside, and he released that ball as soon as he did that.
Right.
He thought the guy had inside release. That's he's going to get the pick, but the receivers got to help him out on that and give him his direct read immediately. So, but we're talking about these two because obviously quarterbacks are what they are. But lo and behold, I'm very interested to see next week because 1 week is kind of the unveiling. Here he is. Week 2 is who are you?
Right.
How
do you adjust to what defenses have now seen you do?
Come on now. Yep,
right.
Exactly. That's what I want to see. What does he do? Now he's on film. And they're going to practice against you. So are they going to throw some games at you? They're going to throw some coverages, some schemes. They're going to move people around. They're going to try to confuse you a little bit more. I'm assuming, you can only see so much from a TV copy of a game.
Right.
It was pretty vanilla from Baltimore's perspective. So how does he adjust? What is Tampa Bay going to throw at him? Are they going to mess with him a little bit? They're going to show cover 1 and then drop back to 2 or whatever it is. And how does he adjust? And how does he grow? And that's where, to your point a few minutes ago, do you keep a Logan Woodside because he does have experience? He has seen those things, and you do know what you're getting out of him as the backup compared to a young rookie kid. At the same time, though, you can't coach talent. Yeah. And, you can coach talent, but some things you can't. And he's just there, and he's a very talented kid. And he was a first-round prospect for a reason. He's a very talented kid. He's got a long ways to go, but so was Mag 9.
You're right. And to that point, you have to have a certain amount of fearlessness to play the quarterback position in the National Football League. And I think the evaluation that we can certainly make through talking with Malik Willis at practice and seeing the way he's practiced and now seeing him play against another team, the way he cuts through somebody in the red zone inside the 5-yard line, I don't think that dude's afraid of anything right now. He doesn't know any better than to not be afraid of anything right now. And it might take one big hit to put a little bit of the fear of God in him. But he looks pretty fearless so far.
Yeah. Dual threat used to be kind of a trendy term. Yeah. It's almost expected now. Right. In the National Football League, everybody wanted that statuesque. The days of old of, well, he's still playing, but Tom Brady it's far and few. A lot of guys are very athletic, agile, and can move. And now, that's the biggest investment on any football team in the National Football League. But being a dual threat, being able to extend drives and run and things of that nature has become kind of trendy. And they're looking for guys that have that athleticism. You look at the whole roster from Baltimore, their whole roster is a bunch of gifted athletes that can throw the rock.
That's right.
And it's going to be hard to defend them, whether Lamar Jackson is playing or not. They are hard to defend. And I think somebody like a Malik Willis, he adds another element. And I think people forget Tannehill, he's just getting older, but he has that athleticism.
He does.
He does. And he has shown it from time to time as well. But he's a lot older. He's more calculated in those attempts, those running plays and things of that nature. He doesn't just go to run just to show he's an athlete anymore. He's more calculated. He's just older. He's a veteran. So I really like what I saw today from Malik Willis. I really do. And again, I'm trying not to get too excited. It's a preseason game. A lot of the veterans are not playing, but he was consistent. He was poised. He settled himself down after that first drive, and he made drives. He extended drives. He made some big throws. It was a good first step. Now let's see what the next step looks like.
615-737-1045, the number. People forget, by the way, Ryan Tannehill has more career rushing touchdowns than Lamar Jackson does, 24-21.
There you go.
There it is right there. So, yes, you still got a pretty athletic quarterback one, even though he was not on the field tonight in Baltimore. Coming up next, I want to talk about one specific player who I think was the star of the first quarter when a lot of these Titans second-teamers were on the field. And if you want to join us and give us your star of the night in a Tennessee Titans uniform, you can do that at 615-737-1045. Who stood out to you the most tonight for the Tennessee Titans. It could be Malik Willis. It could be Racey McMath. It could be Hassan Haskins, who we'll talk about here coming up shortly as well. Titans Talkback. We're with you until midnight. Going to be a late night. Put on a pot of coffee. Let's talk some Titans. 615-737-1045. Back after this on 1045 The Zone. Lead Company Titans Talkback here on 104.5 The Zone. The Baltimore Ravens a winner tonight, 23-10, as the Tennessee Titans open preseason play with a loss before Tampa Bay comes to town next weekend. The only road preseason matchup for the Titans in 2022. Along with Kevin Dyson, I am Will Boling. Great to have you with us, where you can join in on the conversation at 615-737-1045. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lead Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leadcompany.com. Lead Company, all you need. All right, Kevin, we've talked about the quarterbacks. We've talked about a little bit of this offense, but to me, there was one player who shined in this first half who was on the offensive side of the football that we have not mentioned yet. Nicholas Petit-Frere. I thought he was pretty good. This might have been because I was watching the first half with Ramon Foster, and that guy is always looking for the big guys and seeing who is making plays or who isn't. But I wasn't quite a believer that we had a position battle at the right tackle position. But Petit-Frere on the left side and Radens on the right side, I thought the rookie from Ohio State looked pretty good.
Yeah, and again, I talked about it earlier today on 3HL when they did the pre-show. That was one of those interesting matchups to me. Was the offensive line, specifically on their right side, what are they going to do? Is Radens developed enough, gotten strong enough, and aggressive enough to be that lead run blocker on that right side of that line? Because they like to hit that edge a little bit over to that right side. So, and again, I should have paid attention more so to Radens to kind of see, because he didn't stand out, and I just didn't. There wasn't nothing I'm like, ooh, but you saw some good things. But I still think there's a lot to grow in that running game. And conventional thinking is going to say, well, it's because King Henry wasn't there. But we've seen them have other guys in there create running lanes for people, create some gaps in running. There was maybe one incident where I was like, okay, here we go. And then everything kind of shut down kind of quick. Now, I will say this, Ravens defense is pretty quick. They're pretty agile. Even their backups seem to have kind of that same sentiment. They're kind of very agile, very quick defense. But, yeah, you're right. But I'm not even going to try to say that man's name.
Petit-Frere?
Petit-Frere. I'm going to get it down one day, Petit-Frere.
He'll be a household name soon.
Yeah.
But in the two-tone blue.
You're right. He held it down on that left side, and that competition, even though he was there, we know that's Taylor Lewan. We know that's his. How does that translate to the other side for him? Because the footwork's slightly different, right? It's
for sure.
So how does that translate? But as I was saying earlier, the more you can do, sometimes in the National Football League, if you show you can play both sides, your value. Like we had Jason Matthews, who he was the backup for either side, and he provided value.
It's my economics teacher in high school.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You went to BA. That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
And he was a great backup tackle for us for a lot of years, and just quality, no drop off. And we saw the Undertaker the last few years.
Yeah, that's right.
He was a great backup for either side. He even had quality starts for the Titans. So it bodes well to be multi-dimensional in the National Football League.
It feels like Mike Vrabel likes that kind of player.
Yeah.
I think Mike Vrabel sees himself in that kind of player. It's why
he definitely was.
When he talks about Aaron Brewer, he says he's tougher than a $2 steak the past couple of weeks. I think Mike Vrabel sees himself in Aaron Brewer and can relate really well to that kind of guy who is battling every day to be on a roster.
Yeah, I think when you look at their development of rosters, they're looking for multi-dimensional players that are tough. Hard-nosed, gritty guys that can do multiple things. And if, in essence, Vrabel was that guy, right? He played all linebacker spots, D-end, if you will, even played tight end some. He got a touchdown against me when I was with the Panthers, and he was with the Patriots in Super Bowl 38.
Man.
Yeah, so it shows you his kind of skill set. He's and I think in this day and age, and in the rosters and the way things are flexed, especially last year, if you think about what it had 91 roster moves last year, more than any team ever in the history of the National Football League.
Priority not to get close to that number this year.
Come on, and so you need guys that can do multiple things, and so you see a guy like Petit that how you say his name?
Petit-Frere.
Petit-Frere. I'm gonna get it.
It's simple.
My bad, man. I'm gonna get your name. I'm gonna get it.
It's the rookie treatment. All right, he's got to earn it. He's got to earn it
until he actually gets some playing time, real playing time. No, I'm just kidding. But you see guys like him and how he's able to go flip. He'll probably flip from both sides. That adds so much value to the offensive line in depth, and which they've needed the last several years. For sure, they've needed that added depth. A quality depth, if you will, offensive line.
Definitely a guy that looked the part for the Titans in that first half. Titans carry the ball 22 times tonight. They have 103 total yards, 4.7 yards per carry. The rushing touchdown from Malik Willis. He also added a 17-yard carry, had the touchdown. Malik Willis, 5 carries for 38, 7.6 yards per rush. The touchdown. Julius Chestnut leading the Titans in rushing yards and carries tonight, 7 for 44, 6.5 yards per carry. Mike Vrabel mentioning to Mike Keith after the game tonight, Kevin, that he really liked the way Chestnut responded after the fumble on the second drive. And that is something that could be easy to do in preseason when the stakes are high and you're in the bottom of that roster and you're thinking, what one fumble is a really, really big mistake on that stage.
Did you see his body language?
It wasn't great.
It wasn't great.
But he bounced back really, really well and ended up having a pretty good game.
I failed to mention that. I think I kind of glanced over in the beginning when I talked about they had that one moment at the run game, and I should have mentioned that, but he did. He had that big run. He planted that footy good, had good cut back, and like you said, the resiliency, the bounce back after the fumble. That's what you want to see in young guys, because you know, you when you get an opportunity and you think that opportunity has come and gone because you fumbled the ball early like he did, I had to mess with his psyche. But that big run woke him back up and he was ready to go. I do believe some of these numbers are inflated as far as, like you mentioned, like the 4.7 per carry. If you really look at it, it was really 2 big plays. It was
That's right.
You know, so that was kind of inflated. So I still want to see a little bit more from the run game. You know, and again, some of that's timing. Some of that is guys understanding the scheme, getting to the second level, sustaining blocks, communication up front. Like I'm staying here until I press to that second level, things of that nature. But, you know, again, we're trying to show that shining light, excuse me. You know, you have flashes. You have moments, 29-yard rush there, and then, of course, the scramble for 17. But, again, the resiliency of the young guy to bounce back after turning the football over, man, that's what, as a coach, you want to see. How does he respond? Same thing if Malik throws a pick, what does he do the next drive? Is he gun shy? Is he going to be able to deliver? And it's going to be kind of that same sentiment. But, hey, like we talked about, a lot of good things, and how do you progress from here?
Another rookie that got a lot of playing time tonight, Hassan Haskins.
Oh, yeah.
6 carries, 19 yards for him, just 3.2 per carry. Just had the 6-yard rush. That was his biggest run of the night. I was a little bit more surprised to not see him be more of a focal point, to be totally honest with you, in the battle that he is in, specifically when I saw that neither Derrick Henry, which we knew, nor Dontrell Hilliard were going to play in this game. I figured Hassan Haskins would be getting 10, 12 carries tonight.
Yeah.
Wasn't the case. It just never really seemed to get to the second level. Didn't really have that moment where the offensive line kind of paved the way for him.
Well, that's kind of the run game. If you look at the trend, I mean, guys, 7, 6, 5, 3, 1 carry. It was just kind of, they never really could get that going. Field position and things of that nature. Turnovers to kind of dictate a little bit of that. The score, they kept field goaling you to death at the end. So there was no rhythm with the run game. So I would suspect that him and Chestnut are going to get more touches next week. I would, like, to your point, 10, 11, 12 carries apiece. I think ideally that's what they would like to see out of both of those individuals, kind of doing their evaluation and seeing who's going to be that next 2 or 3 guy behind Derrick Henry, of course. But, Julius Chestnut with 7 carries, Haskins with 6, so it's pretty balanced. I think Julius, obviously, with that big run when he planted and made a good cutback, that kind of gives you that focal point, that memory moment of, okay, that was a big run. That's kind of special, and Haskins didn't have that. So we'll see what he does next week.
Tell you what, preseason football gives us much more attention to who is making tackles on kick coverage. But Hassan Haskins made a tackle on kick coverage to start the second half, and Mike Keith said it in the moment. And he's 100% right that in order for that guy to definitely make this roster, he's going to have to do something else. You mentioned the versatility. That is the name of the game this time of year in the National Football League in preseason. His ability to just tackle dudes on kick coverage can't really be understated right now, because Dontrell Hilliard is this team's receiving back.
Yeah.
Dontrell Hilliard is the 3rd down and 6. Ryan Tannehill's in the shotgun, and you've got the option of blocking release or running a route. Hassan Haskins not really that guy.
Yeah.
He's more of a like-for-like replacement if Derrick Henry needs a drive off or if Derrick Henry needs a couple of plays off. So it feels like Hassan Haskins is going to have to major in something else, and I don't think it's in the return game. So it's got to be something else within the special teams game.
Yeah. There's 22 starting spots. So, and then you probably got the backup quarterback.
Right.
Everybody after that, so 24 to 50, whatever, you pretty much got to do something else.
It's a lot of dudes.
Yeah, it's a lot of dudes
that are doing something else
doing
in the
something
NFL.
else, and you got to be versatile. You got to be able to be willing to do what's right for the team. You're going to be, like you said, a punting, kickoff, kick return. You're going to be the holder, kicker, whatever it's going to be. 24 through 50, whatever. You have to be versatile. You have to be willing to stand in the gap for the most part, right? There's some offensive linemen, they're just there, the extra bodies. They don't necessarily do anything, but they may be on PAT block. But if you're going to make an NFL roster being a young guy, a backup, you have to show that versatility. You got to be willing to stick your nose in special teams especially, and to be able to stand out on film and make it hard for them to cut you. And again, I said it earlier, other teams are going to watch the same film. They may need a backup running back, but more so they may need a guy that can go down and make plays in the kicking game that can also come in and make a couple carries if need be. And Titans might not have room for you, and you just never know how it's going to play out. So having a play like that you can have on your highlight reel can carry a lot of weight as people start making roster moves, right? I think Tuesday you got to cut how many guys on Tuesday?
Oh, I don't know the specific number, but it is it's definitely the first big cut
number
that you're going to have to make. Yeah.
And so as that and people start willing, dealing, cutting, pulling, and we want to see what this guy can do in our scheme. It's even more crucial for a guy like him to make a play in special teams, because you got to make it hard for them to cut you. Or if they cut you, somebody else is going to pick you up.
Tuesday, August 16th, cut goes from 90 to 85.
So that's only 5 guys, I guess.
Yeah, that's the first one. Then you'll go to 80. Then you'll finally go to the 53-man roster at that point. So let's talk a little bit about this Titans defense when we come back and see what Kevin Dyson thought about these defenders. And you could join us at 615-737-1045. Give your thoughts on Caleb Farley, who we're going to talk about, Christian Fulton as well. First, though, time for our Kroger Sacks for Cash. Tonight, the Titans had 2 sacks, adding $200 for the season. Kroger's donation to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee now stands at $200, courtesy of 2 sacks tonight from David Aneni. Every time the Titans sack the opposing team's quarterback, Kroger donates $100 to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee from Kroger. Through its Zero Hunger, Zero Waste plan, Kroger is committed to ending hunger in our communities. It's Titans Talkback here on 104.5 The Zone. Let's talk some defense when we come back here. Preseason week number 1 underway. The Ravens beating the Titans 23-10. Titans falling in Baltimore tonight, 23-10. Preseason game number 1 in the books. 2 more to go for the 2022 Titans before September 11th against the New York Giants. It'll be here before we know it, just 1 month away, right here on Titans Radio and 104.5 The Zone. It is Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company alongside Kevin Dyson. I am Will Boling. You can join us at 615-737-1045. 1 hour left of coverage. What, we making a pot of coffee here tonight, Kevin?
We need one.
It's going to be a little bit of a late night for the next hour, but we have got a ton to talk about from this first preseason game of the year. Of course, brought to you by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. All right, let's talk about this defense. We've spent about 45 minutes of the show so far talking about the offense, talking about Malik Willis, Logan Woodside, Caleb Farley, for the first time since Week 6 against Buffalo last fall, gets back on the field. What did you see from him in those first couple of drives as he got back in a Titans uniform here tonight?
It was okay. I mean, it wasn't nothing obviously glaring in his game that you would say he needs more reps. I think he was solid. Obviously, he needs the experience and get his feet under him. It's interesting because he's really a receiver still. He's still learning the defensive back position, but it was good to see him out there being healthy. You can see the potential in him. You can see the fluidity in him. I think he's going to be a guy that truly is benefited from a good pass rush because some of these elite receivers, he's gonna be challenged with them, but I really liked he was calm, he was consistent. I think he's still got a little ways to know from a schematic standpoint, spatial, situational football, but he looked good. I think he's going to be okay. It's just how fast can he get to that other level of shutdown cornerism. Not that anybody's shut down corner anymore because of the schemes and It's hard. You can't put hands on
rules.
Guys. Yeah, the rules make it hard. But can he be competitive and compete, make it hard for guys? And that's what you want from your corners. Make it hard for guys to make plays because they're going to make plays. Guys are just too athletic. Quarterbacks are too skilled. It's hard. It's hard out there for DBs. But you got to compete and make it hard for them. And that's the best corners that leagues do.
I was going to say, I'm surprised there's not a big smile on your face as a wide receiver saying, it's hard out there for those DBs, isn't it? They can't jaw and talk as much as maybe they did when you were playing, can they?
Hey, I'm always impressed because me and Blaine talked about this before. Like I thought, man, maybe I should have switched over to defense. I was only recruited offense at one school. I was always recruited as the DB, and I always like to believe I could have switched it over. Now, whether I've been successful or not, who knows? I doubt it,
right.
But I like to believe I was athletic enough to do it, but. So I'm always impressed at guys that make that jump and that move late in their careers. And to see him and people like Diggs and guys having some success at it, I like to see it. Big, lanky guys, physical guys that can run, understand routes. That's one thing I think he does have an advantage, if you will, that's going to help that learning curve, is as he does understand routes and body language because he did it for so long. So that's going to be to his beneficial. It just becomes picking up the other specifics about the position in the game, but he's I could tell he's processing his position a little bit. But once all that kind of slows down, he just can rely on his athleticism and instincts and just know what he's doing. You'll see a big jump, but it wasn't like he just jumped off the page for me or anything like that. But either way, which is good. He wasn't like, oh, he was terrible. Like we need another corner. It wasn't that kind of performance, but it wasn't like, oh, he's going to be the next Dion performance either, But it was, which is good, right? You don't want either way right now. You wanted him to have progressive growth and get some more experience that he missed out on last year, especially.
615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in tonight here on Titans Talkback. I think the Titans find themselves in an interesting position with Caleb Farley because he badly needs reps.
Yeah.
Badly needs game time. Coming off the knee injury, obviously there's going to be a plan for him that's been set out months in advance for this is how we want these next couple of weeks to look. This is how we want preseason game 1 to look, all the way to preseason game 3 and what practice is. Mike Vrabel said about Caleb Farley when camp started that he and Robert Woods are going to be at about 90%. at this point. How difficult is that to balance holding Caleb Farley back from himself and still recognizing, look, kid, you had a knee injury in week 6 last year, but also still getting that guy reps? Because I imagine there's got to be a pretty specific plan, because that's your probably second corner once the season starts against New York.
That's when practice becomes even more evident. You have to be able to get those reps in when you can. Again, I said it earlier, the preseason now is more for auditions than preparation. But in his case, it's a little bit of both. He still is auditioning to be that guy, that second guy over the other side, but also he's got to prepare. He's got to, that long haul, them legs get heavy. You got to take the decoy route deep and then come right back the next play and be rested enough, recovered enough to cover whatever route comes next. It might be a running back coming downhill. You got to make that play. And that conditioning that he may not have to play 60, 70, sometimes 80 snaps in a game might not be there yet. And so that's where you want to see as far as his preparation and how much he plays. Is he still playing at a high level throughout the course of the game, or does he have laps in there where he's fatigued, and how's his body holding up? How's the knee holding up? Things of that nature. And then does his mentals hold up as you get tired? As you know, you've been an athlete, the mind can play tricks on you.
Yeah, that's right.
And especially when that fatigue kicks in. And so, he needs the experience, but it's the fine line, to your point, of finding that balance of he needs this experience to play, but we also need him in September, October, November to be healthy. But we need to see what he can do. We need him to see what he can do. We need him to see as much offenses as we can, at different skill level of receivers that we can, to know where he's at, so he can know where he's at. He can evaluate himself. Nothing replaces experience, man. Especially in professional sports, the only way you get better is playing.
Right.
And he needs to be out there, but it's that fine line. He don't need to be playing 50, 60 snaps in a preseason game either, but they need to be quality reps when he gets in.
Today, the specific number for Caleb Farley: 22 snaps on defense, 3 on special teams for him. Greg Mabin led the Titans in defensive snaps tonight with 38. He had 12 special team snaps in addition to that. Theo Jackson, VFL, John Overton's own, with 33 snaps on defense, had 13 on special teams. Kevin, I noticed Theo Jackson a couple times, probably because I've got some orange blood in me.
And he's right from down the road.
That doesn't hurt. He's from right down the road. Listen, you tell me that a kid goes from playing at Tennessee to be a Tennessee Titan. You've got my attention at that point, who's from Nashville. But
wait, was Josh Malone up there with you?
Josh Malone, I believe, actually was the same age as me.
Yeah.
Station camp, the Bisons.
I remember
Bison. They do the right pronunciation of that one, right grammar of that one, as I mess up grammar on my own. But I thought Theo Jackson had a good night too. Talking about that secondary, Christian Fulton under only 16 snaps for him, 2 on special teams as well. Chris Jackson with 17 snaps. I would say comfortably this team's 4th corner right now, with Buster Screen not in the mix at this point. But I think Theo Jackson is an interesting guy because I mentioned this on the Buck Rising show earlier this week. At Tennessee defensively last year, I obviously watched a lot of Vols, and it was very simple what they wanted to do on defense. Tim Banks, everything they wanted to do. Theo Jackson was very see ball, hit ball, see quarterback, hit quarterback. It was a very aggressive, single-minded, it's really simple what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go do it as fast as I can. I see a role for Theo Jackson on this Titans defense being really simple, and it's, all right, kid, you're coming in on 3rd downs. You're either covering the tight end or you're rushing the quarterback. That's as simple as it's going to be. Do you see that kind of working out on this Titans defense? Because Dane Cruikshank ain't there anymore, and the Titans love bringing in that 3rd safety on 3rd downs. I think Theo Jackson is in the mix to be one of those guys.
Yeah, he's going to compete. I mean, you look at him. How many snaps you say he had today?
Second most on the defense, had 33 snaps.
33, and then he had 12 on special teams.
13 special teams.
13 on special teams.
Most on special teams of any of the secondary guys.
And to me, that speaks volumes, because that means he's on multiple teams. If he's getting that many snaps, he's probably on kickoff return, probably on punt return or something to that effect. That means he's on multiple spots. That means they're evaluating him very seriously as a quality backup. And so going back to your original question, what would his role be? I still think, as we talked about earlier, Vrabel wants multi-dimensional guys. So he's still going to have to be able to, to your point, see ball, hit ball, see quarterback, hit quarterback. He's going to have to be versatile. Sometimes they're going to have to mix coverage up because people are smart in the National Football League. They will pick up on him very quick. It's like he's either going, like you said, he's either going to drop, he's rushing. Well, if I know what one guy's doing on every snap, I can scheme something up pretty quickly to that. And so you want to be versatile as you can, where you don't give a specific read or a tell. Sometimes it works out where you just play football. Of course, obviously, I got to beat the guy across from me, but we can scheme you. That's what we want to do. So he's going to have to get more versatile, develop some skills in his repertoire, some pass rush skills, and probably develop as a cover guy a little bit, be able to play in space because you have to play in space in this National Football League. Guys are just too skilled and too good.
615-737-1045 here on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. We were talking in the break, the 2 sacks that we mentioned in the previous segment coming courtesy of David Aneni.
David Aneni.
That's a name that we were not talking about coming into this game, but that's a young man who had a pretty good performance tonight for the Titans.
Hey, it was one of the first people that I mentioned. I was like, how you say his name? Aneni, David Aneni. He had a very similar build to Landry. He comes off the edge, very fast, dipped that shoulder, getting sacks. He kind of bounced off the page a little bit. He definitely made a statement. And if it's one of those things where it's close for him to be here or not, I'm not sure where they are with him. He definitely made a name for himself. People are going to take a long look with him. He was pretty competitive. He was solid in the run game. As you mentioned, he got 2 sacks and 4 tackles, I should say, and 3 of them solo. So, and a tackle for loss. I think is one of the few tackles for loss the Titans even had today. So he was active, hard to block. He's making plays. He definitely jumped off the tape. I'll be interested to see what Vrabel says about him, and I guess it would be Monday morning press conference and things when everybody talks to him about when he talks about watching film and what guys did before they start scrimmaging and practices against Tampa Bay. Because to me, he jumped off the page.
Jack Gibbons, Dr. Gibbons, or Dr. Gibby, as Mike Vrabel is calling him. Jack Gibbons does not have a medical degree, nor is he going to get one. But Mike Vrabel, liking the intelligence of that young man, leads the Titans in tackles tonight with 8. Theo Jackson, Joe Jones, Joshua Kalu. A return for him. That's right. He of fame against the Kansas City Chiefs for a blocked field goal, as well as the return against the Indianapolis Colts a couple of years ago. Gets 6 tackles. Greg Mabin, Aneni in there as well. Ola Adeni. Good to see him come back after being a little shaken up at one point in this one. But that is a little bit of the report there for the Titans defensively. Guys who did not play tonight. It is a long list. It would be easier for me to tell you who did play for the Tennessee Titans tonight. Among the starters who did not play, Robert Woods, Nick Westbrook-Akina, Ryan Tannehill, Roger McCreary, that one I want to get to in a minute, Derrick Henry, Elijah Molden, Kevin Byard, Amani Hooker, Dontrell Hilliard, Zach Cunningham, Bud Dupree, David Long, Dylan Cole, Monty Rice, Harold Landry, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, Taylor Lewan, Austin Hooper, Jeff Swaim, Danico Autry, and Jeffrey Simmons. Roger McCreary is a guy that has gotten a lot of buzz, a guy who is playing himself onto the field and who many, including myself, thought was going to really push Elijah Molden to be the nickel corner in this defense.
Yeah.
Roger McCreary is playing a lot of outside corner.
Yeah.
And he's playing himself onto the field as just a football player. I thought disappointing today for him to not get in that lineup. A guy who's been a little banged up in camp, but I think if you really like the depth at one position for this Titans team, for me, I don't think I would have picked it going into camp, but I'm really confident in this team's corners.
Yeah. And I like Molden. I like him in the slot. He reminds me a lot of Donald Mitchell.
Yeah.
A guy that's kind of versatile and physical that can kind of play the tight end or something and get after the quarterback. I kind of like him in there. To me, it'd be hard to really take that spot from him. But what the thing about McCray and the guys, the depth on the outside, again, I feel like with Cunningham and Long and Big Jeff and Landry, I think that front seven is going to make that secondary that much better. And any good corner is going to tell you I'm as good as that pass rush. Even Dion will tell you if I don't have to cover that long, I'm a lot better. And he was one of the best to ever do it, right?
Right.
And I think that front seven can create havoc. I think that's one of the most solidified groups, if you will, is that front seven if of all their team. I think there's some question marks in the depth and what they're doing on the offensive line. I think all we know King Henry is, and he's an all-pro running back. I think there's some depth at receiver, but that front seven on the defense side of football is so quality, especially that first group, that it's going to pay big dividends on that secondary. Guys be able to play games, be able to be aggressive, be able to make plays. Now, I say that you still got to get out the quarterback and make those plays, but this, to your point, McCray, he is a guy that's going to push for that playing time if somebody slips up.
Right.
And Farley, we know he has an injury history, things of that nature. So it's a good problem to have. And it would just say it like that. If you want, remember years ago we were talking about who's going to cover who, and they didn't have depth. They were struggling to find some quality corners. Now you got some good young guys that you feel confident in that can hold up. Still got some question marks as far as experience and how long will they hold up, but I really feel confident that these guys can develop pretty well this year, hopefully anyway.
It seems like the Titans have the luxury now of matching up how they use their corners based on which receivers they're playing and which quarterbacks they're playing on a week-to-week basis. And as quarterbacks of the AFC become even deeper and Russell Wilson joins the conference, Justin Herbert takes a step forward, no Deshaun Watson possibly for anybody this season, but not in the AFC South anymore. So a little bit of a different look, with Matt Ryan, with Trevor Lawrence in a second year within the AFC South. It seems like the Titans now have that luxury of saying, look, it's not cornerback 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's, all right, this guy is a twitchier, faster guy. McCreary is on him. And any given week, depending on if you're going up against DeAndre Hopkins or Tyreek Hill, you've got different kinds of corners who can be man for man against those guys.
Years ago, we did that with like Samari and guys. They depended on the style and the play. You better suited for this guy. So Denard, you're gonna go in this guy. Samari, you got this guy, and that served us well, right? Because of skill sets. But you still had to be smart within the scheme. Still had to get out the quarterback. It helps when you have Javon Curse and guys getting after the quarterback, right? But that's always a good thing because because of how the NFL is run now and the lack of physicality at the point of attack,
right?
For the receivers, because you really don't have that same physicality. Everybody's playing more position football than physical football, and that doesn't mean that these guys are not physical players. I don't mean it like that. It's just you can't put your hands on it. It's a flag. It bodes well to have skill set for match with skill set, but you still have to be versatile enough because if you you don't want to show your cards, right?
Yeah,
if I always know which side you are, you got to be able to do some different things, and I think that's what I want to see from these young guys as they get more advanced in the schemes, schematic of things. How do they hold up? Are they studying their film? Are they be able to make plays? Again, depth is always good. It's always something because you can say what you want about that first group, like we talked about, that first 22, yeah, they're solidified. But take the backup quarterback away, 24 through whatever, you got to be quality depth. And we talked about special teams being one. But if you come in because of injury, that drop off is very minimal, if at all. And you've seen a lot of guys get from a backup role into a starting role and just never get a job back.
Right.
And because well, dang. That's the one we should have been playing, so to speak.
And Elijah Molden has been the guy that's been out the past couple of days and really a week and a half. And Roger McCreary is the guy who's benefited.
And benefit from it. He got on film, on tape. And in this business, where it's not for long, somebody's noticing.
That's right.
And it might not be here, and it might be here later. It might be one of those things where he gets let go and they go somewhere else and they let him go. We've seen that scenario here a time or two where somebody's been let go and brought back. later on in the season, and they end up performing pretty well. It's just just business is such a cutthroat business, and it's so finite in difference in people's ability. Really, you can almost go either way with some people because the guys are so skilled and so talented. Sometimes it does come down to dollars and cents. This guy makes, I'm just gonna throw numbers out there, but this guy makes $1 million compared to 800,000, and there's not that big a difference. We'll keep the 800,000, save 200 on the cap, so to speak.
All about value.
Yeah, all about value. And I'm throwing just general numbers out there right now, but those are type of decisions as they're sitting there in that room making this roster decisions that they consider because you might have to make moves later.
615-737-1045 if you want to jump in on the conversation. If you're up late with us tonight on a school night, on a Thursday night here, the Tennessee Titans falling to the Baltimore Ravens 23-10 here in preseason week number 1. You've mentioned something a couple of times, audition versus preparation in preseason football. I want to expand more on that coming up here after the break because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming to town. And those individual periods for the linemen get a lot more physical. Those individual one-on-ones for wide receivers against defensive backs are about to get a lot more competitive because that DB doesn't know your moves and he doesn't know how he's going to try to push you off of your route if you're a wide receiver.
I used to love it when we compete against other teams.
It's the best.
It just rejuvenated me. It just gave me another, don't get me wrong, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
I loved practice. It was an opportunity to get better.
Right.
But it's practice.
It's autopilot.
Yes.
You show up and then
you get your reps. You try to get better every day.
Get recovered and you go home.
Go home.
Injury-free day is a good day.
You bring somebody else out there, I'm trying to put on a show.
That's right. That's right.
But we'll talk about it when you get back.
Absolutely. 615-737-1045. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Facility managers need a reliable partner for their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. They trust Lee Company's 24/7 service and their team of experts. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Back after this as Titans Talkback rolls on. Once again, it's Ravens 23, Titans 10. It is the maiden voyage for Titans Talkback in 2022 as the Baltimore Ravens knock off the Titans 23-10 tonight in M&T Bank Stadium. Along with Kevin Dyson, I'm Will Boling, where you can join us over our final half hour here at 615-737-1045. If you got a little bit of coffee, think of us as you drink it here tonight. Let's talk a little bit about this next week. We've talked a lot about Titans-Ravens tonight. But joint practices are where we learn the most about starting caliber players who are not going to play in a lot of these preseason games. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kevin Dyson, are a very good team to bring to town. A lot of familiarity there. And I think specifically a really good test for the guys up front because it's not all that physical in those one-on-ones with those guys within your own team. It's about to get a whole lot more physical this week.
And you mentioned right before we went off the preparation versus audition.
Yeah.
These practices are a little bit of both. And I say that I think for the guys who are not getting a whole lot of reps in the preseason games, this is some more closer to that live action. The pace will pick up a little bit. The competitiveness will pick up a lot. And so this is somewhat some of that quote unquote preparation for getting ready for the opener in September. But for the other guys, and I say other guys, the ones you're still evaluating, this is a little bit of both. You're preparing obviously for a game, but you are definitely auditioning, and you're not just auditioning for the Titans. You're not just auditioning. You're auditioning for Tampa Bay as well because you just don't know, right? In your career can span 10 years, and this GM or this head coach can be in New York next year or 4 years from now, and they remember you. So this is the opportunity to audition from that standpoint, but also get better. If I'm a young corner, I'm watching Tom Brady and how he operates.
Yeah.
How he checks. How is he reading? Mm-hmm. How is he reading body language? How is he reading corners? What is he doing? What am I giving away that I can learn from that he can't study me? Like, he's seen it all, right? So you're not really going to fool somebody like him. So he's looking for other things. Like Peyton Manning, you've heard him talk about, he would look at how people had in their stance so he knew what coverage they were in, if they were coming, if they were blitzing or not, just based on how people were standing. That's kind of studying them guys do. So what can you take from that as a defender or even as a young player as you're going against a consummate, perennial, soon-to-be Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
You know, what can you take from him? And this is a great learning experience. And, again, the competitiveness goes up. The pace goes up. It's fun. We didn't do it a whole lot when I was here. We did it twice. We did it here with the Colts. Then we traveled to St. Louis. I say St. Louis, but when we traveled to Missouri. Yeah. And that was some of my funnest training camps. It took away from the monotony. It added another element of excitement and competitiveness. And I look forward to those days, those practices, because I got to, again, it was an opportunity to prove my worth. Even though I was a starter in the league at the time, I was trying to prove that I was, because I was going to get somebody new. Yeah. Every rep was money. And not that it's not when you're not going against those guys, but it just elevated up to that next level. And so I'll be interested to see what the narrative comes out of practice, specifically from even the media, but specifically Vrabel and his staff and JR and everybody.
It's going to be interesting because it feels like joint practices sharpen those instincts. Yeah. In the moment. What do you do when a guy cuts inside and you've got outside leverage and you're one-on-one and trying to make a play? Yeah. You watch enough of these one-on-ones and you watch Roger McCreary against Treylon Burks. I don't know how many times I have seen Roger McCreary against Treylon Burks, but at the beginning of every practice, Mike Vrabel has put those two guys together and put them in one-on-ones, right? It's great to get that competitive environment, to get two rookies going up against one another, but I have to imagine that after about 2 or 3 reps of that, Roger McCreary knows what Treylon Burks wants to do, knows what his moves are, and vice versa. Is it good to kind of get somebody in there that there is no preparation? There's not a lot of film. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much you're really watching film on what's a guy going to do on one-on-ones where I can, undercut him and make a play. It seems like these sharpen your instincts even more because you have no prior knowledge of the way some of these guys work in some circumstances.
Just for about one practice.
Yeah.
Because after that, we're studying them. I'm trying to find every advantage I can have. Like for instance, me and Samari were the people that say number one, number two. I was the number one draft pick. He was number two draft pick. I wore number one in college. He wore number two in college, and we were pitted against each other every time. And it was whether he admits it or not. We probably both. And now we're older. We can admit it. It was a pride in that. I wanted to beat him. He wanted to beat me. And it's the same thing. So whether Treylon and McCray, they're going against each other all the time. They want to win, but it also brought some creativity out of me.
Yeah,
because Samari knew me so well, and Samari was a student. He watched me. He not just me, but he watches receivers. He watches body language. He watches routes. He watches formations and trends. And so you had to be very smart to beat Samari. And so it actually made me better going against him all the time because he did know me so well that I had to become creative and find ways to beat him. I had to be physical with him and things of that nature because he did know me so well. So to the flip side of that, I can take some of those things. This guy doesn't know me so well. He doesn't know the cadence. He doesn't know our checks just yet because they're going to study. So I can work on game mode-ish routes. I can use some of that creativity. I can see what it's going to be like in game mode, game speed dang near, and utilize some of the things to see how it times out. That was what I always tried to do. I would say, okay, this is a one-on-one route. I'm taking a little bit more time because it's one-on-ones and there's no pass rush. But let me see what the times out with when I got the Colts defender from me or the Rams defender in front of me because now it speeds up a little faster, and I want to see if that stuff works. So that's what you're going to see. Everything speeds up, but just a little bit more because it's just a little bit more competitive. And you've been going, like you said, going against the same guy every day. It gets like, oh, I've seen this move, and he's sitting on it. He knows the route.
That's right.
You know, but to the DB's point, you can get kind of, I hate to say the word lazy, but you can get lazy with it in a sense that because you do know him so well. Now you flip that. Now you got to play your technique. You got to be smart. You got to understand. You got to look at formations. You got to look at pattern reads. You got to look at his stem. You got to be more disciplined in your route and not make assumptions until you get to know that guy across from you.
I'll tell you what, for Malik Willis, a guy that we've talked a lot about tonight, he is going to get a crash course in try to be tricked and deceived by another defense because he may think he knows the looks that Shane Bowen and the Titans defense wants to give him, and he's about to see a completely different scheme on the other side of the football.
I don't know how much nowadays, if you will, the opposite teams show the other team as far as schematics and blitzes and things of that nature. There wasn't a lot of that. It was a lot of just playing us straight. You can see a few blitzes and a few vanilla blitzes, some different schemes that were just pretty traditional, just for your line to pick up, your running backs to pick up, and you play coverage behind it. I'm assuming it's still kind of that same philosophy from both teams. At the end of the day, you want a high-spirited, competitive practice and come out of this healthy and go to the preseason game and work on some things and do your evaluations because, like you mentioned, you go from 85 to 80, and then after that, you're pretty much reducing to your active roster. And so this is just another evaluation period, but the speed picks up. You're not going to see a whole lot. So Malik, it's just now the pace picks up. Well, it's going to be very similar to what it was tonight, maybe not to that extent as far as speed, excuse me, but it is a different philosophy. It's a different approach. You got 2-3 days of it. They're starting to learn your tendency. They studied you on film. You have a twitch in your hitch in your game. They're gonna find it. Oh, when he does this, he moves his head like this.
Right.
He's looking here. They're gonna find something, and then they're gonna capitalize on. That's how detailed some of these guys get.
Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. When we come back, we have one more segment to wrap up the inaugural Titans Talkback of 2022. We're going to hear what Mike Vrabel had to say about why he pulled Malik Willis out when he did. He was quick and to the point, and we're going to play you that 7 seconds of audio coming up next. Plus, we'll take a look ahead again at Tampa Bay, talk about the Titans receiver who had the big play of the night. That's all coming up next as we wrap up Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company, right here at 104.5 The Zone. Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. 23-10, the Baltimore Ravens knock off the Tennessee Titans tonight in preseason matchup number 1. All of our coverage here on 104.5 The Zone brought to you by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. Will Boling and Kevin Dyson with you for one final segment before we turn the page on tonight's show and look ahead to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like in these practices with other teams over the course of the week, we will be recapping next weekend, perhaps as much about the practices as we are the games themselves, because we're going to see a lot more ones-on-ones in those practices probably than we'll see in Nissan Stadium next Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly. And that's good. That's, again, we talk about preparation versus audition. For those players that are not getting many reps in the preseason, this is part of their preparation. This is their quote-unquote preseason game. It's live to the whistle. They're not going down to the ground for the most part. But this is, I get to see another color jersey. I get to study another guy. I get to work on my technique, compete at a high level, and really focus on getting better and getting ready for the season, since they're not necessarily getting reps on these preseason games. So this is their part of their preparation, especially for the veterans or the starters, if you will.
One guy who did get a lot of reps tonight, Malik Willis, getting the start, playing into the third quarter, but was abruptly pulled from the game after completing 6 of his final 8 passes tonight. Mike Vrabel was asked about that, and he was short and to the point about why Malik was taken out in favor of Logan Woodside in the third quarter.
Oh, that's because I wanted Malik to throw the ball, and he wasn't, so I put Logan in.
And there you go. Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. Malik Willis, as we said, 6 for 11, 107 yards, carried the football 5 times. Logan Woodside, 14 of 24 for 102 yards. Had a pair of interceptions, but he was trying to throw the football, like Mike Vrabel said, where Malik Willis was pretty quick to decide to just try to keep it on the ground.
Well, I think some of that's that uncertainty of being a young guy. You don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to turn the ball over. You're trying to compete for a position, if you will. He's trying to compete for that number 2 spot, right? If all things are considered.
100%.
Yeah. And so I can imagine my first preseason game, I don't want to be out there turning the ball over. And we talked about it early on. We look at the stat line. One guy turned the ball over twice. Now, I believe one of those is not his fault, but it still goes on his stat line. And I see what Vrabel's meaning. Like, we want to see what you can do, kid. We know you can run. Stop running.
Yeah, play within the scheme, right?
Throw the ball.
Right.
Get rid of it. Know your reads. Know your keys. Know where you're going with the football. So, again, that's one of the growing ages. I'm sure he's looking at the iPad on the flight home now.
That's right.
Trying to learn and get better. If he's a consummate pro, he is, and he'll try to get better as soon as he got on that plane.
One thing that I think is kind of an interesting discussion with this, and maybe this is a stupid question, and tell me if it is, but can you make a certain amount of good mistakes in preseason? Because the whole point of preseason football is figuring out whether things work or not.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said of Mike Vrabel wants Malik Willis to stand in the pocket and figure out if he can go to his second read, and maybe he does take a sack. I think maybe outside of the situational periods in red zone, which I guess would qualify under situational, and 2-minute in red zone, I think I'm okay with the guy making some mistakes when you know that he's on the team. Malik Willis, there's nothing that guy can do for him to not be on this roster, in my opinion. So at that point, like, is that what Mike Vrabel is saying here, is that I'm okay with you throwing a pick because you're trying to go to your second or third guy. Maybe you make the wrong decision, but you're trying to make that second or third decision.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think there's some validity to what you're saying. I definitely think they want to see how he is progressing as far as, just like you said, his reads and making throws. But into what you said, are there good mistakes? And I wish I can go back to the film. Even the scramble for a touchdown, I felt like there was somebody immediately that he probably was immediate read.
Right. And
he wasn't confident to make that throw, and he circled back and
believed in himself.
Believed in himself.
And there's something to be said for that.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I know there's been plenty of times I feel like I was open, and he get in the film, he was a little closer than I thought.
Spoken like a true wide receiver right there.
But yeah, just like golf, right? There's always those oops, that worked out. for me, and that could be the case. There's been plenty of times, even Tom Brady probably has made the quote unquote wrong read that worked out for him, and then you can see. But I think what coach is really trying to tell him is, man, we want to see how you handle this offense within the scheme of things, going through your progressions, making throws. We're not trying to see our quarterbacks running. One, we need you for the next play or the next game
That's
or the next
right.
series, whatever it is. Two, we just want to see what we have and want to see what you are. We want to see how you're progressing. And this is his first game. I'm being lenient and nice, and Vrabel's always going to be the way he is. He's not going to show his hand. I'm sure he spoke nicely to the kid. I shouldn't say
Sure.
nice. That's probably not the best word to put it, but I'm sure he was positive and said these things we can grow on, watch film and grow. But he also has the expectation on his players. You study, you get better. You know where you're going with the football. We want you to do certain things. This is what I expect to see. So if you're not going to do it, let me go to a guy and get out, and then we can have this conversation.
Interested to see the way Malik Willis is able to build on this performance going into Tampa Bay this week.
Does he start, you think, next week?
I think so.
You think so?
I think so. He had one less snap today than Logan Woodside. So a pretty even 50-50 split, obviously, appeared to be the plan at that point. But perhaps we see Ryan Tannehill. Do you think he plays a little bit game 2?
I think he gets a lot of reps in practice, and they'll do like they did last year when we didn't see him or Henry or anybody at all. I think he gets a lot of reps over the week with going against that defense. That defense is pretty solid.
Yeah, it is.
And they're aggressive. I think he needs. And this is just my opinion. This is a good week for Traylon Burke. To your point, he was going against a guy every day he knows, familiar. If you're going to build a rapport with a guy in game-like speed, it's one thing, go against practice with the same scheme against the same guys every day. You kind of, like you said, kind of what to do, how to, quote-unquote, cheat the system, if you will. This is going to be crucial. How is he competing? Let me see how he works his one-on-ones with another guy. Let me see how he is in the pass parent. How is he blocking? Is he digging out these safeties now that are going to be a little extra? That bump thud that you used to get from Kevin Byard is now going to be an extra shoulder thrown at you to see where you're at, kid. You see where you're at, rookie? That's what they're going to tell him.
Right.
Yeah, and so we'll see how he handles it. And that, I'm just giving an example of those two. There's other examples that you want to see of guys and how they aggressive. I think you saw the highlight with what's going on with my man, the Cowboys today when he came down.
Yeah, that big fight out there.
Yeah, see, hey.
A little bit of that within reason, it's going to happen, and it's,
they get competitive.
It's competitive, man. That's what Vrabel wants.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that the players like it too. It just, it just re-energizes you.
Yeah.
You go out there and it's not a normal practice. You try to. It's like a preseason game. You go out there, it's still a game. I still want to play. And football of all sports, I've said this before. People have said, oh, they're tanking. They're trying to lose. Football of all sports, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You do that, you get hurt.
Right.
You can't tank a football game.
It's against the DNA of the guys that you're paying millions of dollars.
I can't go out there and jog and half-ass it because
Right.
if I do that, man, I'll mess around and get hurt. It's nothing in it. Now, whether franchises don't start guys or whatever, that's up to them. But
Sure.
Players play, they tell off at every point because if you don't, specifically in football, you can get yourself hurt. So that being said, when you get out there on a competitive situation like competitive practices, guys are gonna go. They got a point to prove. I'm the best player in this field, and that's what you want to prove every time you step out there. I'm the best player on this field.
Absolutely right. Now we look ahead to next week's opponent. The look ahead presented by Eurofix. Let me remind you, Eurofix repairs everything European that you drive and below dealer pricing. They have ASE certified technicians, a local company that has served Middle Tennessee for over 2 decades. Visit EurofixOnline.com. Next week, it is Titans against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is Saturday, a 6 p.m. kickoff. Titans Countdown begins Titans radio coverage at 5 o'clock. Lee Company Countdown to kickoff at 4. That is our look ahead presented by Eurofix. We are looking ahead to a really fun season here on 104.5 The Zone for Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Dr. Kevin Dyson, I told you before the show started, I have listened to this show for years. Driving back on I-40, going back to the University of Tennessee while I was coming down here as a student. It is an honor to get to do this with you, and we're going to have a lot of fun this season.
I appreciate you, man. Have fun, man. This is it's interesting. You, like we said, we're up here late and we're talking about the preseason game. But we're having fun, man. It was fun to get to be on here with you, man, and we'll continue to grow and get and just progress and get better, just like the Titans.
That's right.
Just get better every week.
When people jokingly say it's preseason for everybody, I don't think people out there actually realize that it really is preseason for everybody.
It really is. It really is, man. You get the first opportunity, you get up there, and you have so many things from our standpoint, that you want to say, you want to convey.
That's right.
So many thoughts come across your head, and catch yourself rambling a little bit. Like, dang, let me land the plane, KD. Land the plane.
No, it's been good. It's been a fun maiden voyage of 2022, and we're looking forward to doing it again next Saturday night.
Yes, sir. We'll see you, brother.
Absolutely. That does it for the inaugural Titans Talkback of 2022, presented by Lee Company. Titans radio coverage is produced by Philip Noel and Brad Willis. Studio producer is Joe Hunkapiller. Scoreboard producer Lucas Panzica. Spotter Brad Willis. Promotions director Marie Bradshaw. Director of sales Hunter Rice. General manager Allison Warren. Operation managers Charlie Cook and Paul Mason. And executive producer Rhett Bryan. For Kevin Dyson, I'm Will Boling. So long tonight, where again the Ravens beat the Titans 23-10. Back at it Saturday for Titans and Buccaneers inside Nissan Stadium. We'll talk to you next time.